The arena buzzed with excitement long before the first match was announced. Banners hung high, cameras flashed, and thousands of fans packed the seats for what was being called one of the most prestigious international martial arts exhibitions of the year. Fighters from around the world had come to showcase discipline, strength, and tradition. At the center of the attention stood China's strongest fighter, undefeated, confident, and widely respected for his explosive power. Commentators spoke his name with reverence. Unstoppable. Unbreakable. A living legend. The crowd cheered as he stepped onto the platform, calm and focused, his presence alone enough to silence the room. Then something unexpected happened. The host smiled and announced a special guest, someone not there to compete, but to honor the sport. Please welcome Chuck Norris. A wave of applause rolled through the arena, mixed with surprise. Chuck Norris walked out slowly, dressed simply, his expression calm and respectful. He wasn't there to prove anything. To most people, he was already a legend, an icon of martial arts, discipline, and old-school strength. But not everyone saw him that way. A few murmurs echoed through the crowd. He's too old. This isn't his era anymore. Why is he here? Even the Chinese fighter glanced over, curiosity turning into a faint, confident smile. To him, Chuck looked like a guest from another time, respected, yes, but not a threat. That's when a comment, half joke, half challenge, was spoken into a microphone. So, what would happen if the legend faced the champion? Laughter rippled through part of the audience. Chuck Norris paused. He didn't smile. He didn't react. He simply looked toward the fighter, then toward the crowd. For a moment, no one spoke. The question hung in the air heavier than anyone expected. Was it just playful talk? Or had something real just been set in motion? The Chinese fighter crossed his arms, clearly confident. To him, this was impossible, a mismatch, a fantasy. Chuck, on the other hand, remained silent, his posture relaxed, his eyes steady. No one knew it yet, but that single moment, one careless challenge, was about to turn a celebration into a confrontation the world would never forget. Because no one expected what happened next, the moment the question echoed through the arena, the mood began to shift. At first, people laughed it off, assuming it was nothing more than playful banter, a symbolic what-if meant to entertain the crowd. But as the camera zoomed in on Chuck Norris's face, the laughter slowly faded. He wasn't amused. He wasn't offended either. He was simply focused. Across the platform, China's strongest fighter straightened his posture. He had trained his entire life for moments like this. Years of discipline, sacrifice, and dominance had earned him his reputation. To him, this event was about honoring modern strength, speed, power, evolution. And now, standing only a few meters away, was a man many admired but few believed could still compete. The fighter gave a confident nod, almost dismissive. The commentators leaned closer to their microphones. Let's be honest, one of them said. Chuck Norris is a legend, but legends belong to the past. The crowd murmured in agreement. Some fans cheered Chuck's name out of respect. Others shook their heads, whispering doubts. He's too old for this. This isn't a movie. Experience can't beat raw power. Chuck could hear it all. He stood quietly, hands relaxed at his sides, eyes calm. He didn't interrupt. He didn't defend himself. Decades of martial arts had taught him something the crowd didn't yet understand: real strength doesn't need to announce itself. Officials gathered near the platform, debating quietly. This wasn't planned. This wasn't on the schedule. Cameras were already rolling, social media buzzing with speculation. The Chinese fighter took a step forward. Out of respect, he said confidently, "I will accept, if he wants." Gasps rippled through the arena. All eyes turned to Chuck. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then he gave a small nod. Not proud. Not angry. Just calm. That simple gesture sent shockwaves through the crowd. Phones shot into the air. Journalists scrambled. Security tightened their positions. The tension was no longer playful, it was real. Who's watching this right now? Comment below which city or country you're watching from, backhand index pointing down. Back on the platform, the contrast between the two men couldn't have been clearer. One radiated youthful confidence and dominance. The other carried quiet discipline and control. The Chinese fighter rolled his shoulders, warming up, clearly enjoying the moment. To him, this was a chance to prove something, to show the world that the new generation had surpassed the old. Chuck Norris remained still. No stretching. No show. No intimidation. That unsettled people even more. Why isn't he reacting? Someone whispered. Is he scared, or completely confident? The announcer cleared his throat. Ladies and gentlemen, this will be an unscheduled exhibition. The crowd erupted. Doubt filled the air, but so did anticipation. Some believed Chuck was about to be embarrassed. Others felt something unexpected was coming. As the two men moved toward their starting positions, pride clashed with legacy, and the noise in the arena dropped to a tense, electric silence. No one knew how it would end. But everyone knew one thing. This was no longer just a question. It was a challenge. The announcer's voice echoed through the arena. Gentlemen, begin. For a split second, nothing happened. Both men stood still, eyes locked, reading each other. The crowd held its breath, unsure whether to cheer or stay silent. Cameras zoomed in, catching every subtle movement, every shift of weight, every tightening muscle. Then China's strongest fighter moved first. He exploded forward with speed that stunned the audience. A sharp combination followed, fast, powerful, precise. This was the style everyone expected, modern, aggressive, overwhelming. The crowd roared as he pressed the attack, forcing Chuck Norris to step back. Look at that speed, a commentator shouted. He's not holding back. Chuck moved calmly, deflecting, sidestepping, absorbing the pressure without panic. He didn't counter. He didn't rush. He simply watched. To many watching, it looked bad. He's on the defensive. He can't keep up. This won't last long. The Chinese fighter sensed it too. Confidence surged through him. He pushed harder, another flurry, another powerful strike aimed to end it quickly. This was his moment to prove that strength and youth ruled the present. Chuck blocked. Shifted. Stepped aside. Again and again. The crowd grew louder, divided between excitement and doubt. Some shouted encouragement for Chuck. Others shook their heads, convinced they were witnessing the beginning of the end. But then something subtle changed. Chuck's breathing never altered. His posture never broke. His eyes never left his opponent. The fighter paused briefly, surprised. He had thrown everything, speed, power, pressure, yet nothing had landed cleanly. What should have been overwhelming suddenly felt ineffective. Chuck took one slow step forward. Not aggressive. Not rushed. Just deliberate. The arena noise dipped as people sensed the shift. Did you feel that? One commentator whispered. The momentum just changed. The Chinese fighter attacked again, harder this time. He wanted to finish it. Pride demanded it. The crowd expected it. Chuck moved. A slight turn. A precise block. A controlled redirection. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't dramatic. But it worked. For the first time, the fighter stumbled back. Gasps rippled through the seats. What just happened? How did he do that? Chuck didn't chase him. He didn't celebrate. He simply reset his stance, calm as ever. The fighter's expression changed. The confidence was still there, but now it was mixed with something new. Uncertainty. What do you think will happen next? Comment Chuck or fighter below. The crowd leaned forward in their seats. They were no longer watching an exhibition. They were witnessing a battle of styles, raw power versus mastery, youth versus experience. The Chinese fighter circled, slower now, more cautious. He had realized something important. Chuck wasn't surviving the fight. He was studying it. Chuck took another step forward. The tension was unbearable. Every person in the arena felt it, the sense that something decisive was coming. The fighter tightened his fists, preparing for one final, all-or-nothing strike. Chuck remained calm. Because he knew. The real fight was just beginning. The arena felt different now. What had once been loud and chaotic had transformed into a tense, focused silence. Every eye followed the two men as they circled each other. The excitement was still there, but now it was mixed with disbelief. China's strongest fighter wiped his palms against his gloves. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. He had expected resistance, maybe even a short struggle, but not this. Not the calm. Not the control. Not the feeling that every move he made was being anticipated before it even happened. Chuck Norris stood relaxed, balanced, patient. No wasted motion. No unnecessary effort. The fighter inhaled deeply and made a decision. If speed and pressure weren't enough, power would be. With a sudden shout, he launched forward, putting everything into a single aggressive sequence: strength, pride, reputation, all of it. The crowd gasped as the attack came fast and heavy, the kind meant to overwhelm and end the match in one decisive moment. For the first time, Chuck moved first. Not backward. Forward. In one smooth motion, he stepped inside the attack. A clean block. A precise redirection. His movement was so controlled that many didn't even realize what had happened until it was already over. The fighter lost balance. Just for a second. But that second was enough. Chuck adjusted his stance and delivered one perfectly timed, controlled technique, not brutal, not flashy, but undeniable. The kind of move that came not from strength alone, but from decades of discipline and understanding. The fighter staggered back, then stopped. The entire arena froze. No one spoke. No one moved. Then reality hit. China's strongest fighter had been decisively outmaneuvered. A wave of shock rolled through the crowd, followed by an eruption of sound, cheers, gasps, disbelief blending into one overwhelming roar. Did you see that? That was pure mastery. He waited for the perfect moment. The commentators struggled to find words. That wasn't power, one finally said. That was experience. The Chinese fighter straightened himself, breathing hard, eyes wide, not with anger, but with realization. He looked at Chuck Norris, truly looked this time, and slowly nodded. Respect. Chuck stepped back, lowering his hands. No celebration. No raised fists. No ego. Just calm. Officials moved closer, unsure if the match was truly over. But the crowd already knew. Something had changed permanently in that moment. This wasn't about winning or losing anymore. It was about understanding. The fighter bowed his head slightly, a gesture that silenced the arena even more than the move itself. Chuck returned the bow. Do you believe experience can defeat raw power? Comment yes or no. The applause grew, not wild, not chaotic, but deep and respectful. People weren't cheering a defeat. They were witnessing a lesson. A reminder that true strength isn't loud. True confidence doesn't rush. And real mastery reveals itself only when the moment is right. As the noise echoed through the arena, one thing became clear to everyone watching. This was the turning point, not just in the fight, but in how the world would remember it. And what came next would shock them even more. The roar of the crowd slowly settled into something deeper, something rarer. Respect. China's strongest fighter stood still for a moment, chest rising and falling as he caught his breath. The shock on his face wasn't humiliation or anger. It was clarity. For the first time in his career, he understood what it meant to face someone who wasn't trying to overpower him, but outthink him. He took a step forward. Then, without hesitation, he bowed fully. The arena went silent. This wasn't a rule. This wasn't required. This was a choice. A choice that spoke louder than any words. Chuck Norris returned the bow immediately, his movement slow and deliberate, acknowledging not victory, but character. The two men stood facing each other, not as rivals anymore, but as martial artists bound by mutual understanding. The crowd erupted, not in chaos, but in admiration. People stood on their feet. Some clapped. Some raised their phones. Some simply stared, realizing they had witnessed something far more powerful than a fight. The commentators struggled to keep up. "This isn't just a match," one of them said. "This is history." Across the arena, officials exchanged looks. What had started as an unplanned moment had become the defining highlight of the entire event. Cameras zoomed in on the two fighters, one young and powerful, the other calm and timeless, both united by respect. The Chinese fighter stepped closer and spoke quietly, his voice picked up only by nearby microphones. "Thank you," he said. "You taught me something today." Chuck nodded. "You fought with honor." Those few words sent another wave through the crowd. No trash talk. No excuses. No bitterness. Only humility. Within minutes, clips of the moment began spreading online. Social media lit up across continents. "Did you see Chuck Norris? That wasn't strength, that was mastery. This is what real martial arts looks like." Fans from Asia, Europe, the Americas, and beyond shared the footage. Analysts replayed the turning point again and again, slowing it down, breaking it apart, not to glorify domination, but to understand discipline. Former fighters weighed in. That was timing. That was patience. That was decades of experience. Even those who had doubted Chuck at the start began to change their tune. "I didn't believe it," one viral comment read. "But now I understand." The Chinese fighter later addressed the media, standing tall and composed. "I didn't lose respect today," he said. "I gained it." Those words resonated just as strongly. In gyms around the world, coaches replayed the moment for students. Not to teach aggression, but restraint. Not to teach power, but awareness. Chuck Norris didn't stay in the spotlight for long. He shook hands with officials, exchanged quiet words with his opponent, and stepped off the platform without fanfare. No victory lap. No interviews demanded. That, more than anything, amplified the respect. Because legends don't chase applause. Applause follows them. What matters more in a fighter, power or discipline? Comment power or discipline. By the end of the day, headlines around the world had changed. Not upset victory. Not shocking defeat. But something far more meaningful. A lesson in respect. The moment transcended borders, cultures, and generations. It wasn't about one country or one fighter. It was about values shared across the martial arts world: honor, humility, and lifelong learning. And as the world continued to replay that quiet bout between two warriors, one truth became undeniable. True respect isn't demanded. It's earned, silently, decisively, and forever. What no one knew yet was that this moment of respect would soon reach the highest levels of power, and lead to a surprise that would shock the world. The story didn't end when the arena lights dimmed. In fact, that was only the beginning. Within hours, clips of the match flooded every major platform. News channels replayed the decisive moment. Sports analysts debated it. Martial artists praised it. Even people who had never followed combat sports before found themselves watching the video again and again. Not because of the technique alone, but because of what it represented. A quiet lesson in discipline. A reminder that humility still mattered. By the next morning, the story had reached places no one expected, including Washington. Reports began circulating that Donald Trump, watching the footage from afar, had taken a personal interest in the moment. According to sources, it wasn't the fight that caught his attention most. It was what happened after. The bow. The restraint. The respect. This, one insider claimed, is what leadership under pressure looks like. A few days later, an official announcement stunned the media. Chuck Norris had been invited to a private ceremony. Speculation exploded. What's going on? Why Chuck? What's Trump planning? When the day arrived, cameras lined the entrance. Chuck stepped forward calmly, dressed simply as always. No flashy suit. No dramatic entrance. Inside, the room was filled with officials, veterans, athletes, and leaders from different backgrounds. When Donald Trump entered, the room stood. He didn't waste time. "I've watched that moment many times," Trump said, gesturing toward a screen behind him displaying a still image from the fight, the bow between two warriors. "And I believe moments like that deserve to be recognized." The room grew silent. Then came the surprise. Trump presented Chuck Norris with a special honor, a symbolic gift recognizing not victory, but character. Not dominance, but discipline. A rare acknowledgement meant to highlight values that transcended politics, sports, and borders. The audience reacted instantly. Gasps. Applause. Cameras flashing. No one had expected this. Chuck accepted the gift with a nod, his expression unchanged. When asked to speak, he stepped forward slowly. "I didn't do anything special," Chuck said. "I just did what my teachers taught me, to respect the art, respect the opponent, and respect yourself." The room fell quiet again. Those words traveled fast. Headlines followed within minutes. "Unexpected honor shocks the world. From arena to world stage. A lesson recognized at the highest level." Social media erupted once more, this time with debate. Some praised the recognition. Some questioned it. Many discussed it. But almost everyone agreed on one thing. The message mattered. Do you think Chuck Norris deserved this honor? Comment yes or no below. Trump concluded the moment with a final statement. "Strength without respect is nothing," he said. This was about showing the world what real discipline looks like. Chuck didn't stay long. He thanked the hosts, shook hands quietly, and left without seeking attention, just as he had left the arena days earlier. And that consistency. That was what truly shocked people. Because the honor didn't change him. Fame didn't inflate him. Recognition didn't define him. It simply revealed what had always been there. As the ceremony ended and the footage spread worldwide, one realization became clear. This was no longer just a sports story. It had become a symbol. And in the final chapter, the world would reflect on why this moment mattered far beyond a single fight, or a single gift. Long after the ceremony ended, the story kept growing. Clips from the fight, the bow of respect, and the unexpected honor were shared across the world, translated into dozens of languages, discussed in gyms, classrooms, and living rooms alike. What started as an unplanned moment at a martial arts event had become something much bigger. It had become a message. People weren't arguing about who won anymore. They weren't counting strikes or analyzing techniques. They were talking about values. In interviews, martial arts masters from different countries echoed the same thought. This is what we try to teach, but rarely get to show on a global stage. Students replayed the footage, not to copy the move, but to understand the patience behind it. Coaches paused the video at the turning point, pointing out the stillness, the timing, the control. "Power fades," one coach said. "Discipline lasts." Chuck Norris himself stayed mostly silent. He declined most interviews, offering only a short statement when asked about the attention. "The moment didn't belong to me," he said. "It belonged to the art." That response alone inspired another wave of admiration. Meanwhile, China's strongest fighter also spoke out. In a respectful message shared online, he thanked Chuck publicly, saying the encounter changed how he viewed strength and success. "I didn't lose," he wrote. "I learned." That single sentence went viral. Across cultures and borders, people connected to that idea. In a world obsessed with winning, here was a reminder that growth sometimes mattered more. Documentaries were proposed. Articles were written. Panels discussed the meaning of respect in modern competition. Even people who had never heard of martial arts before understood the lesson. Because it wasn't about fighting. It was about restraint. About humility. About knowing when to act and when not to. Years later, people would still reference that moment. Not as the fight where someone lost, but as the moment the world remembered what true mastery looks like. If you believe true strength comes from respect and discipline, type legend in the comments and subscribe for more powerful stories like this. And so the legacy lived on. Not in trophies. Not in titles. Not in headlines. But in the quiet understanding shared by millions who watched and realized. The strongest impact isn't made by force. It's made by character. And that legacy shook the world.